Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Church in Fall River. Happy New Year!
We have turned the sound system all the way up, and we're hoping that it will work. Welcome to the Unitarian Church in Fall River, where we think religious questions are important, but we want to work out our own answers, and where we gather to share ideas and support one another. We gather this hour as people of faith, having sorrows and joys and needs and gifts. We light this beacon of hope as a sign of our quest for truth and meaning, and in celebration of the life we share together. It's almost New Year's. I like to use this hymn when it's New Year's. It's number 58, Ring Out Wild Bells, but the tune is to a different hymn. So if you know how to read music, don't. Just follow the words. Nancy's going to play a different tune. It said in the last verse there, ring in the love of truth and right. I was the successor in Weymouth of Olympia Brown, who was the first female minister in New England in any denomination. And I had access in the church records to not originals of letters she wrote, but copies that had been copied into. And she would sign herself, yours in truth and right. Yours in truth and right. Could we join, please, in our unison affirmation? Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve human need, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other and with God. Please be seated. As an invocation, I'd like to explain the picture on the cover. That's Roger Williams. It's a drawing, of course, of Roger Williams, the founder of Rhode Island. And he's in the middle of a journey on foot from Salem to Taunton in the winter to escape being arrested in Salem by the sheriff. He's been convicted by the General Court of Massachusetts of I can't remember the word. Wait a minute. No. Of sedition and heresy. And in Taunton, he is going to stay with Wampanoag Indians for a while until spring. And he needs to get out of Plymouth Colony as well, because he was thrown out of Plymouth Colony also. And the Indians take him to what is now East Providence, because the Indians think that Plymouth Colony ends there. But he settles in East Providence only briefly, in Rumford, actually, that part of East Providence, because he gets a letter from Governor Bradford of Plymouth telling him that Plymouth Colony goes all the way to the Seekonk River. So he crosses the Seekonk River and landing at Slate Rock. There's a memorial to it in Gannot Park in Providence, if you're familiar with that part of Providence. And he founds Providence plantations on land given to him by the Narragansett Indians. But that's, and 2 years after founding Providence in 1636, this drawing is in 1636, he founds the first Baptist church in America in Providence. And it's still there. It's that huge white church on a city block at the foot of College Hill. If you're anywhere around that part of Providence, you can't miss it. And it is the first Baptist church in America. And a few years ago, it changed its name to that, to the First Baptist Church in America. That's now the official name of that church. Potluck next week. It's the second Sunday of the month. There's, Steve, do you have information about the MLK thing? Let me say what I know, okay? There's this MLK observance that we have annually. It will be on MLK Day, which is January 19th, so 2 weeks from tomorrow. It'll be at 2 o'clock here with setup at 1:30. There'll be luncheon and then people sharing memories or readings or things about MLK. The Black congregation has been invited. The temple has been invited. ORG Fall River is the principal sponsor, our Revolution Greater Fall River. Go ahead. What did I leave out?
That's about it. But if you want to make a whole day of Martin celebration, at Bristol Community College, beginning at 8:30 in the morning, there is a breakfast, I think it may be 20th, and they've had many over the last decades. It's a great event. They usually have a great speaker, music, breakfast, full breakfast is served. And that begins at 8:30. It's in the Commonwealth building, which is around the back of the community college. So that's at 8:30, and then following that service, Bethel AME, which is at the corner of Maple and Hanover Streets. They do a traditional gospel kind of service. So that's happening usually at about 11:30 or so. And we decided to put our annual luncheon, then it used to be a dinner, so a potluck piecemeal, as we call it. We're moving it up to 2 o'clock. We found that some people would go to the service at Bethel AME, and then it would end and go home, and then it was 1 o'clock. So we're trying an earlier stop, 1:30 stop, 2 o'clock service. Those of you who are so inclined to play music, Jim is offering music at times for our service. We appreciate that again. And then let me know what you're bringing. It's a very casual potluck. We don't have like a strict request for anything in particular, but just so we know that we're not getting duplicates of anything, just let me know what you plan to bring. That's it. Thank you.
So we're talking about two possible potlucks. There's the one next Sunday here, but this is 2 weeks from tomorrow, and it's a luncheon. Yeah. Well, next Sunday's a luncheon too. Yeah. So, yeah. Kit.
Let me tell you who's going to be here next week. You may be able to hear me, totally not, right? So, and Ken Reeves will be here next week. I don't know if I've seen his order of service yet. Have you? No. Okay. I am going to send him a reminder today. So thank you, Richard. I'm looking forward to hearing what all of you are going to teach us about the Baptist and Baptist hymns.
All of today's incidental music will be old Baptist hymns. One of which gave me ideas, which would be Onward Christian Celebration. When I was a kid, that really freaked me out.
Well, just one last thing, Messiah sing, if any of you are so inclined to want to participate in a Messiah sing. It's happening today at 3 p.m. That's at the First Congregational Church, directly across the street from the old Drifty High School building, the former trial court. And Judy Conrad organizes this and provides a luncheon following the Messiah sing. So another opportunity for gathering and late lunch.
One other thing I wanted to mention, normally we have an annual meeting and we didn't have one last year because of Eric is our moderator and our treasurer, and he's the prime person for the annual meeting. And because he had a heart attack, he was in the hospital last year. We didn't have an annual meeting. And one of the things we do at the annual meeting is vote on new members. And I just wanted to mention to you, we are a membership organization. Becoming an official member is not required. If you do become a member, the way you do it is sign the membership book. And after 60 days or something, you're voted in by the annual meeting. 60 days to see if you're a weirdo or not, I think. This is the bylaws. This is the bylaws. If you become a member, what you're doing is, well, if you don't become a member, we will not pay less attention to you. We will not miss you less if you don't come. We won't be less happy when you do come. We will still ask you for money. But if you're a member, if there's some really important decision that needs to be made about the future of the church, only members get to vote. So that's what it amounts to. So think about, sometime this spring, we'll have the annual meeting. Eric is still behind, and one of the things at the annual meeting is a financial report. So probably April or sometime like that, we'll have our annual meeting. And between then, think about whether you might like to be a member. We'll bring the membership book into the building beginning next week, and all you have to do is sign. That's all you have to do. You don't have to take an oath. You don't have to agree to anything in particular. You just sign the book. Anyway. For a prayer today, since Roger Williams was such a friend of the Indians. Roger Williams, when he was a boy in England, had a real facility with languages. By the time he was 10, he could speak English, of course, but also French and Dutch. And he could read Latin and Greek and Hebrew. Okay? And when he came here in 1631, he quickly picked up the Indian language, and it wasn't long before he was speaking with the Indians. And because he was such a friend of the Indians, I thought I should find an Indian prayer, and I don't have a Wampanoag or Narragansett prayer, but there's a prayer I like a lot by a Sioux medicine man named Yellow Lark. This was written in 1887. So could we please be joined in a spirit of prayer? O great Spirit, whose voice I hear in the winds, and whose breath gives life to all the world, hear me. I am small and weak. I need your strength and wisdom. Let me walk in beauty and make my eyes ever behold the red and purple sunset. Make my hands respect the things you have made, and make my ears sharp to hear your voice. Make me wise so that I may understand the things you have taught my people. Let me learn the lessons you have hidden in every leaf and rock. I seek strength, not to be greater than my brother or sister, but to fight my greatest enemy, myself. Make me always ready to come to you with clean hands and straight eyes. So, when life fades, as the fading sunset, my spirit may come to you without shame. Amen. Now let us be silent together to create an opportunity for prayer or meditation. Providence Plantation was founded in 1636, and the Rhode Island plantation, that is the plantation of Aquidneck Island, which at the time meant Newport and Portsmouth, that was founded soon afterward, and they formed a joint colony called Rhode Island and Providence Plantations, which was the official name of the state until just a couple of years ago. I love it. I had a friend who's from Rhode Island, his driver's license said, the state of Rhode Island and Providence Plantations. And I thought that was wonderful that the smallest state by area had the biggest name. Anyway, when Rhode Island was founded, there was a civil war going on in England. So there was a delay in getting an official charter from Parliament to make Rhode Island a legal colony. And the Civil War didn't end until about 1660, I think. And so in 1663, Rhode Island finally got a charter signed by the new king, Charles II. And this is what it said, some of what it said.
That music costs a lot.
I think it stops after 5 minutes, right? Yeah, okay. Whereas the petitioners have freely declared that it is much on their hearts to hold forth a lively experiment that a most flourishing civil state may stand with a full liberty in religious concernments. Now that was called a lively experiment because it had never happened in modern times. All of the European countries had an official religion, and you could get into trouble with the civil authorities, with the police, for religious reasons, for heresy. This was true throughout Europe. It was true in all the other colonies over here. They say the Pilgrims came for freedom of religion. Well, they came for freedom of religion for themselves, but not for anybody else. The Puritans came to Massachusetts for freedom of religion for themselves, but not for anybody else. This was true in all the colonies. But Rhode Island was proposing, and of course this is Roger Williams, was proposing a colony where the church and the state were completely separate. And that's why the king calls this a lively experiment. And he agrees with it to go along with it. He says, it is our royal will and pleasure that no person within the said colony at any time shall in any wise be molested, punished, disquieted, or called into question for any differences of opinion in matters of religion. Rhode Island was the first secular civil organization in modern times. And this freedom of religion that we value so much in America, it's in the First Amendment. Well, 160 years before the First Amendment, this was all pioneered by Rhode Island. Rhode Island is where we get religious freedom in America. It's from Rhode Island. It's from Roger Williams. Last month, we sang the same tune, but with Unitarian words. The Unitarians completely changed the word. Roger Williams was an Anglican priest, a priest in the Church of England. He quickly decided that the Church of England was corrupt and needed to be purified. So he became a Puritan while he was still in England. By the way, that civil war in England was between the Puritans and the Church of England. And then, before he had even come to the US, he decided, well, what became the US, before he came to America, he decided that the Puritans weren't going far enough, that the Church of England was so corrupt, it couldn't be purified, that we should separate from it and start a new religion based on what's in the New Testament. Return to the Christianity that was in the New Testament, without all the golden vessels and the heavy robes and the creeds and all that stuff. So he became a separatist. So when he arrived in Boston 5 years before the picture on the cover, in January of 1631, he immediately came to Plymouth Colony because the Pilgrims were separatists. And up in Massachusetts, they were Puritans. Well, he had become a separatist. But in Plymouth, he got into trouble. He thought they weren't going far enough, and he didn't keep his mouth shut about it. So he caused controversy in the church. And I said he had gotten to know the Indians. He got to know the Indians within just a couple of years better than most of the settlers did, because the settlers depended on translators like Samoset and Squanto to communicate with the Indians. But he was starting to communicate directly with the Indians, and he was telling the people in Plymouth Colony, "You're not being sufficiently respectful of the Indians." So they threw him out. That's how open they were. They threw him out. So he went up to Massachusetts, even though in Massachusetts, excuse me, the religion was Puritanism, but the church in Salem had separatist leanings. So he went to Salem, and he got in trouble all over again for the same reasons. And he was tried by the General Court. That is the state legislature. That it's still called the General Court. It's the great and General Court of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. The General Court tried him and found him guilty of, what did I say before? Sedition and heresy. And they were going to ship him back to England to deport him. And they said, well, you can stay, though, until the ships are sailing again in the spring. This was in December of 1635. And so he said, okay, but he didn't. They said, you can stay provided you keep your mouth shut on these issues. But he did not. And so they sent a sheriff to arrest him, and the sheriff arrived at his home in Salem. But Roger Williams had left 3 days before on this solo walk in the winter to Taunton. Once he was in Providence, having had bad experiences with both Puritans and separatists, he decided he needed to go a step further. And in England, he had learned about another religion that was even more radical, the Baptists. The Baptists were originally liberals. They were radical. Like the Puritans, they thought the Church of England was corrupt. Like the separatists, they wanted to fashion a church that was like the churches of the New Testament. But they went one step further. They said, if you were baptized as a child, it doesn't count. It doesn't make sense to baptize children. They don't know what they're getting into. It should be adults that are baptized. They know what they're doing. They're making a commitment to a religious point of view. And so these people were called Baptists. To join them, you had to be baptized, whether you had been baptized before or not. As an adult, you had to be baptized. So they were called Baptists. And they were the most radical religion in existence at the time, unless you count the Quakers, who were really out there. But other than the Quakers, they were as radical as you could get. And they stood on two pillars. Separation of church and state was pillar number one. And so you can see why Roger Williams pressed so hard to have that put into the charter of Rhode Island. Separation of church and state. The civil authorities have absolutely no business interfering with your religious beliefs. And the second principle they called soul liberty. Soul liberty. The liberty of your soul. And what they meant by that was the absolute right of each person to interpret the Bible for themselves, to decide for themselves what a particular passage meant. It amounted to religious freedom. I went to the First Baptist Church in Rhode Island a few years ago just to see. And I was surprised because I had been hearing so much of my life how conservative Baptists were, how fundamentalists many of them were, but always really right-wing. And I wondered what had happened to Roger Williams' church. And I was really delighted. It's definitely Christianity, but the pastor was very knowledgeable on the latest things in biblical interpretation and biblical scholarship. And he was drawing on traditional Christian things, but he had a very modern point of view, and the point of the sermon was very modern. He could have been a UU as far as I was concerned. And this was, when I went there, this was at the time when gay marriage still hadn't become the law of the land, and there was still some controversies, and there were still organizations that didn't allow gays. This was about 2005, so 20 years ago. And the First Baptist Church in Providence had a sign outside, big letters, that said, "We reserve the right to welcome everybody." And I thought, yeah. The Baptists are in some sense the cousins of the Unitarians. We also believe in separation of church and state, and we believe in individual religious freedom. And like the Baptists, I didn't say this about the Baptists, but every congregation was independent. I mean, certain Baptist organizations have formed called denominations. There are lots of them. The Unitarians just have one. There's the Unitarian Universalist Association, and that's about it. But the Baptists must have 30 different denominations, 30 different groupings. There's the American Baptist Convention. Those are the ones that are still liberal. That's what the one in Providence belongs to. There's the Southern Baptist Convention, which is the most conservative probably of all of them. But there are a bunch of other smaller denominations. There are lots of Baptists. The Southern Baptist Convention alone has 16 million members. Now, the Unitarian Universalist Association has 160,000 members. The difference is a factor of 100, okay? For every UU, there are 100 people in the Southern Baptist Convention, and that's just only one of many Baptist denominations. I was saying there are cousins in a lot of ways. When the Unitarians joined with the Universalists in 1960-61, we had a big influx of Baptist heritage that most UUs were not aware of. And that's because the Universalists used to be Baptists, a lot of them. For example, I'm talking about the early leaders. Hosea Ballou, who was the prime Universalist leader for the whole first half of the 19th century, he had been a Baptist preacher before converting to Universalism. And he was converted by a minister named Caleb Rich, who had been a Baptist preacher before becoming a Universalist. And at Hosea Ballou's ordination, which was in Oxford, Mass. in 1794, the minister who was chosen to give the ordination sermon was Elhanan Winchester, who had been a Baptist preacher. Many of the early Universalist leaders had been Baptists. So since our marriage with the Universalists, we've acquired a lot of Baptist heritage ourselves. The Baptists were a small minority, though, up until about 1750. But in 1800, only 50 years later, they had become the biggest denomination in America. And by biggest, I mean not just by a little bit. Number two was only half as big. They were the biggest denomination in America in 1800. And it's largely because of the revolution. That's what happened in that 50-year period, our breakoff and war with England. Part of it was because the spirit of the Baptists was the spirit of the revolution. The revolution was about fighting, well, this was at least the propaganda, fighting the tyranny of the English government. Well, the Baptists were fighting the tyranny of all governments over religious affairs. They had the spirit of the revolution, and their competition was handicapped. In Massachusetts, for example, the Congregationalists, they were the official church of Massachusetts. And they were supported by public taxes. And even if you didn't go to the Congregationalist church, your taxes went to support the Congregational church. Later, there was a modification that you could go through a kind of bureaucratic process and file some papers and have your taxes diverted to another church. But it felt like taxation without representation. Remember, that was one of the big themes. In grammar school, we learned that taxation without representation was what a lot of what the revolution was about. Well, that's what the Congregational churches were doing. They were taxing people without representation. Even if you weren't a Congregationalist, your taxes supported the church. And now the Quakers were pacifists. So they refused to support the war against Britain. They refused to support the Revolutionary War. So they came to be seen as Tories. That wasn't fair. They weren't really on the side of Britain, but they came to be seen that way because they were pacifists. And of course, the Anglicans, called the Episcopalians here, they had a tremendous handicap because they were the Church of England, and we were fighting England during the Revolution. And some Baptist preachers were really skilled at propaganda. The thing about Baptists is, and this is different than most denominations, they don't feel that you have to go to seminary to become a minister, to be ordained. You don't even have to go to college. You don't even have to go to school at all. If you're in a congregation and they think you're a skillful pastor and you know what God wants, they can ordain you their minister. And so whenever there was a shortage of ministers or a shortage, in the Revolution, there was a shortage of ministers in most denominations because a lot of young men were in the army. So their religious education was handicapped by that or delayed by that. But the Baptists could supply empty pulpits like that. Any one of you could have become a Baptist minister just by being ordained by your congregation. Anyway, but some of these Baptist ministers propagandized. They said it's the Baptists who are the real heirs of the Pilgrims. And there's some truth to that, because the myth about the Pilgrims is that they came for religious freedom, but they didn't really. The Baptists really were in favor of religious freedom, so that propaganda helped the Baptist churches grow. We finally allowed Baptists into Massachusetts with our new Constitution in 1780, written by John Adams, a Unitarian, by the way. Anyway. Why did so many of the Baptists become so conservative, right? That's the question. It seems to happen when you form organizations of churches. If a bunch of Baptist churches bind together, say 100 churches bind together into a denomination, then the denominational leaders want to promote that religion. And so the denominational leadership tends to be populated by people with a kind of advertising mentality. And part of that is give people what they want. And people don't want complete religious freedom. We say, here we want to work out the answers for ourselves. That's hard. Most people don't want that. Most people want to go to a church and be told the answers to life's big questions. So these denominations, it was really the leaders of the denominations who started to attract people, compromising the principle of religious freedom of the Baptists. I mean, that's how it started. And it's been 400 years, so it's not surprising that a lot of Baptist denominations now are very conservative, and a lot of individual Baptist churches are too. But not all, like the one in Providence, not all of them have become conservative. I went to my file of clippings, and this is an old clipping. This is 25 years old, but you could find clippings like this today. This is about a Baptist church leaving its denomination. This is the First Baptist Church in Raleigh, North Carolina. This is by the Associated Press. This is from the Globe. After 153 years of existence, Raleigh's oldest Baptist church has broken away from the Southern Baptist Convention. The members voted 264 to 23 to leave the convention. 264 to 23. Churchgoers said they could no longer accept the authoritarian trends within the 16 million member denomination. The denomination was telling the churches what to believe. First Baptist had a long list of grievances with the conservative convention, including a 1984 resolution against the ordination of women. That was something the denomination had done. They didn't approve of that at First Baptist in Raleigh. Or a 1997 measure calling for the boycott of the Walt Disney Company. The Walt Disney Company was portraying gay people in a favorable light in some of its productions and was generally friendly to gay people. And the Southern Baptist Convention, what was the word used here? Voted to boycott the Walt Disney Company. Well, this is the straw that broke the camel's back. Was in June of the same year, the convention told women to submit graciously to their husband. And the governing board of this church in Raleigh, they had a 48-member governing board. Half of them were women. So the church in Raleigh, it comes down to the church saying, yes, our membership in your organization benefits us because you produce hymnals and publicity and stuff, but But you're smearing our reputation because you're saying things we don't believe in this particular church. So that's why they withdrew. It may happen down the road that Unitarian churches do this with the UUA. The Unitarian Universalist Association has, the last 10 or 15 years, been doing things that smell of authoritarianism. They've been putting things on their website that are really political, and people who want to know what Unitarian Universalist churches stand for, naturally they go to the website and they learn, for instance, that all of the racial trouble in the United States is the exclusive responsibility of white people. No black or brown person's behavior has ever had anything to do with racial conflict. And, well, you can go to their website and find out. If you look at their sex education material, you can find out that little girls, some of them might grow up to be boys, and little boys might grow up to be girls. Defunding the police was something that was passed a few years ago. This was at the time, we were all upset at that horrible thing that happened to George Floyd in Minneapolis. But defunding the police, first of all, this is political, right? The denomination has no business making political statements and expecting individual churches to abide by them, or using that to publicize. Defunding the police, if you think about it, it's a lousy idea. I mean, if you ask the people in high crime areas what they think, they say, we need more police. We want the police budget doubled, Anyway. The UUA has started behaving in an authoritarian way, and I'm not saying it's time for us or any other church to withdraw, but down the road, if this keeps on, there's hope. People have hope that we can change them, but if we might do that. There's no letters column in their magazine, not even online. Their current president was elected at an election with one candidate, just like North Korea. The vice president, who's really the person who runs the organization, is unelected. The board of trustees is essentially unelected, and they are the supreme authority. And they're taking all these positions on political issues. So sometime down the road, if not us, some Unitarian churches may start withdrawing from the UUA. It's not something you want to do because you don't want to feel like you're alone, especially because there isn't any other Unitarian denomination that we could join instead. There's a fledgling one starting in the Pacific Northwest, but it amounts to nothing to this point. Well, having said all that, let's hear it for the Baptists. They invented the idea of institutional religious freedom, a civil state that promised to keep its nose out of people's religious beliefs, right? This religious freedom that we admire so much in America, that we're so grateful for, they invented. And many of them are still upholding that, despite all these reasons for these churches to move in a conservative direction. A significant number have not, like the one in Providence. It was founded in 1638. We're proud here in Fall River, we were founded in 1832. We're proud that we're still upholding freedom of religion and so on. They're 200 years older than we are. They were founded in 1638. Let's hear it for the Baptists, And now for the support of this congregation and its work, the morning offering will be gratefully received and I hope freely given. Oh, yes, okay. Yeah. This is our time of sharing joys and concerns. The theory is a joy shared is multiplied, a concern or sorrow shared is divided. Eric and Diane are recovering from a bad cold.
We all have joys. We made it through the new year, the beginning of a new step in our future. As we go past 25, we look forward to 26. My concern is what I just learned about what Donald Trump has done to the medical situation and medical care, taking away from the homeless, and I've been eliminated from getting, I guess, Obamacare is gone, so now there's no more free care. So they take away all my care for, what do they call it, the prepay. Now that my doctors are not, my cardiologist doesn't want to set an appointment with me until I can make sure that I can afford to pay, which I've never done before. But now that everything is changing with the medical, they want to put a limit. I have a torn I have a problem on my shoulders, I have orthopedics, I got cardiology, I got everything going, but now, because the government wants to take away the ability to pay for those services, so I lose that. I end up canceling 3 appointments because I cannot be paying that extra money that they expect me to pay for these appointments.
How much do they want you to pay?
As of right now, $496. And then if I'm gonna do the thing with my shoulder, anytime I have an appointment, want me to make sure I can afford to pay for it. Some type of payment, which I've never done before, because like I said, it's just weird that now that he wants to change everything, especially being a senior, medications and all the other things that are going on, that's gonna make a lot of people struggle even harder, because now you have a choice. My choice was cancel my doctor's appointment. I'll suffer the consequences, but at the same time, we need to do something, stand up and say, hey, don't we have rights? Can't we change things? I mean, this is not right, that they want to change and hurt the seniors and people who can't afford medical coverage or medical pills, anything. If you can't afford it, you don't go.
But you're eligible for NASA, which is free care.
I'm not anymore.
Why, it's too high?
I'm 61 years old, and I don't know what they call too high, or what their leverage is, but at this,
That's not NASA. Oh, NASA, that's right.
I don't have that anymore.
That's right, there it is.
Yeah,
No, you're eligible for free care. From NASA.
I tried. But I'm gonna try again.
No, you are. I mean,
The only problem,
he wants to volunteer.
see, my problem is when they give me these applications and things to fill out. I'm not,
So you can go to
You
this
know what I mean?
and they'll fill it out.
I don't know how to do
Their address.
the right way of answering the
Okay.
question.
I'll give you their
Yeah,
address.
that's the only thing I have. But it is true, they are taking away too much. And
No, I have friends who have a lot there, now that they enjoy so much of their machines, so I understand. Yeah, you are knowledgeable.
Anybody else?
So I'm a little concerned about, well, our interactions with Venezuela over the weekend. And what's the next step? You know, what's the next thing that's gonna happen? We should be anybody. So I'm just talking about the fact that I'm worried about what's happening in Venezuela. And I'm not saying that they're a good country or a bad country, or they're certainly not the only reason we have drugs. But it looks like an active war. Yes. And that worries me. It's the oil. It's the oil. It's oil. Oh, it's oil, absolutely, I totally agree. Yes, agree. Yeah. It's not drugs. Yeah. Maybe you should be a Russian. We're gonna kidnap all the presidents of the countries we don't like. There's someone gonna grab him. Someone's gonna grab him, right? We don't want that to happen.
Somebody should have grabbed Justin Trudeau in Canada. No. He's my 8th cousin, by the way.
No, sir.
Yeah. I know that about him, but he doesn't know that about me.
His loss.
Can we join in our closing hymn number 358, Rank by Rank, Again We Stand? May ours be a religion that, like sunshine, goes everywhere. Its temple, all space. Its shrine, the good heart. Its creed, all truth. Its ritual, works of love. Amen.